Hi everybody, welcome to my next movie review. This actually is, well, I hate to say it, a redo, because for some bizarre reason, my original version of this movie review has went missing. And that's why, like, when I talked about this book, Harry Potter and movie, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince in the last movie review, when I talk about Deathly Hallows Part 1, I'm talking about like what I was talking about in that other movie review that went missing. Yeah, I am doing the actual movie review for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince here, but I wanted to, first get that disclaimer out that this is, of course, a redo. In this movie review, like I said, I'm doing Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And there is one thing that is different from what's actually in the book. This is, of course, the British cover of Harry Potter and Half-Blood Prince. I do also have the book cover for what it looks like here in America, or the United States, or whatever you call where I live, for us. Well, what happens in the book is, at the beginning of the book, Dumbledore comes and gets Harry from the Dursleys, instead of like what happens in the movie where Dumbledore actually shows up at, at the subway with, Harry's, flirting with the waitress in the restaurant. That's what happens at the beginning of the movie. What happens in the book is, and I mentioned this in the last movie review, that Dumbledore basically in this book tells the Dursleys that, hey, look, just so you know, next year when Harry turns 17, y'all are going to be in a lot of trouble. And it's, Dumbledore basically explains to the Dursleys that thanks to Petunia's sister, Harry's mom, Lily, that, she put a spell of protection over not only Harry, but Petunia and Vernon and Dudley. Because, she wanted to protect Harry, because she loved him so much. Well, of course, what mom doesn't love their kid, right? In most instances. Well, anyway, Dumbledore explains this. Of course, he also mentions to the Dursleys, Dumbledore does, that, by the way, Harry's going to be, an adult when he turns 17. Of course, as I mentioned in the last video, Vernon, being the big dummy that he is, told Dumbledore, look, nobody's going to be an adult at 17. Yeah, right. And, Dursley tells Dumbledore that Dumbledore doesn't know his butt from a hole in the ground, basically. And, Dumbledore just looks, in the book like at Dursley the way Dumbledore would normally look at somebody, be like, no, I'm serious, But anyway, in this movie, of course, this is year 6 of Harry's education, and, this is, year 6 at Hogwarts for Harry. And, everything's going down to that final battle that does happen in Deathly Hallows Part 2, which, just to remind you, I will do the movie review of Deathly Hallows Part 2 when it comes out next year, in 2011. Of course, Harry Potter goes back to the school, and, he and Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger are there for their 6th year. Well, and in this movie, finally, Professor Snape, or Severus Snape, has finally gotten his wish and become the Defense Against the Dark Arts instructor, while Horace Slughorn has taken Snape's place as the potions teacher. Of course, when Harry goes to class for potions, he discovers the owner of his potions book before him was called the Half-Blood Prince. And in the Half-Blood Prince, there's, in this book that the Half-Blood Prince left behind, it's, the book is noted with refinements that, Harry is able to do really well in class and become Slughorn's favorite student. Slughorn, of course, also is intrigued by the fact that there's a rumor that Harry is the quote-unquote chosen one who will finally up and kill Lord Voldemort, who has recently regained power and is set to destroy the Wizarding World or conquering it. Of course, this is where, the romantic relationship between Ginny Weasley and Harry start, coming out, and Harry's, awkward about it because of course, his best friend happens to be Ginny's brother, Ron. Ron starts, of course, dating Lavender Brown, causing a rift between Ron and Hermione, who Hermione is secretly in love with him. The rift heals when Ron is nearly killed by poison mead intended for Dumbledore. Of course, Harry suspects Draco Malfoy, and, that Draco Malfoy's become a Death Eater, or one of Voldemort's supporters, and, Harry believes that Draco is responsible for the mead and some, previous attacks on Dumbledore's life. However, nobody wants to believe Harry. Of course, Dumbledore and Harry go through private meetings, to see Voldemort's past. A memory Harry gets from Slughorn, of course, confirms Dumbledore's suspicion that Voldemort splintered his soul into 7 fragments in the chance to achieve near immortality. 6 of these fragments contained magical objects called Horcruxes, which must be destroyed before Voldemort himself can be killed. 2 of the Horcruxes have already, of course, been destroyed. Tom Riddle's diary, which Harry destroyed with a basilisk fang in his second year, and Voldemort's Godfather's ring, which Dumbledore destroyed over the summer. Dumbledore thinks that the remaining Horcruxes are Voldemort's pet snake, the genie, which that snake is really huge, and objects formerly owned by the Hogwarts founders. Salazar Slytherin's locket, Helga Hufflepuff's cup, and an unidentified object of either Godric Gryffindor's or Rowena Ravenclaw's. After, of course, Harry casts the curse from the Half-Blood Prince's book, and Snape sees Harry do this, Snape tries to get the book back from Harry. Harry hides the book in the Room of Requirement. Harry's Hogwarts house, Gryffindor, wins the school's Quidditch championship. Of course, Harry up and kisses Ginny, and, with Ron's, indifferent approval, Ginny and Harry start dating. Of course, Dumbledore also finds another Horcrux and asks Harry to help him destroy it. And, of course, this movie, it's pretty hard to watch. I won't ruin how it ends, because, well, long story short, it's got a rather sad ending. This movie's actually pretty hard to watch. It's not nearly as hard to watch as, of course, Deathly Hallows was, but it is pretty hard to watch because, where they go to the cave, Dumbledore and Harry, and, of course, Dumbledore drinks that stuff in the bowl, that water or whatever that is, and it makes him go bonkers, basically. That's just really hard to watch because it's hard to see an old man act that goofy. But Harry, really takes a beating. Not as bad as he did with the Triwizard Tournament in the previous book, and not as bad as he does, in Deathly Hallows. But this movie just, it's kind of hard to watch, of course, where, there's a lot of stuff where it's Harry's going through all these, emotional changes, and he's, starting to go through puberty and everything, and adolescence and everything, and it's just, of course, there's a lot of changes going on, with kids that age, or teenagers that age and everything. And I really did enjoy reading not only this book, but watching the movie. And like I mentioned before, the biggest difference between this movie and the book it's based on was the beginning of the book and the movie where, Dumbledore actually gets Harry from. Because, as I mentioned in the movie review for Deathly Hallows, what winds up happening is this actually, them taking the whole thing with the Dursleys out at the beginning of this movie, that actually, in my mind, kind of skewed what happened in Deathly Hallows when I saw it. Because I'll tell you what, like I mentioned in the Deathly Hallows review, you see the Dursleys packing their stuff up and getting out of there like a pack of scalded cats. And there's not like a reason why. I mean, I sincerely hope that, like, at Deathly Hallows 2, they do a backflash to, like, Dumbledore picking Harry up or something, and, you know, like, or, like, there's, like, a letter that comes or something, because, I mean, the actual thing that really, you know, sets it off is actually in this movie's book at the beginning, because it's actually brought to the Dursleys' attention, you know, excuse you, you know, Harry's going to be an adult at 17, you know, and this is what's really going on, and this is what's going to happen when he turns 17. Y'all are going to be in a lot of trouble, basically, is what it boils down to, you know, with the Dursleys. You know, that would be what I would have done. I mean, it's just, that's my biggest bone with the pick with this movie, is that was off, in my opinion. Because seriously, they could have seriously, you know, like included that, or like, you know, had like, you know, like a comment about, you know, like Dumbledore could have told Harry at some point that he wrote, like Dumbledore could have wrote a letter to the Dursleys and said, you know, and sent it by Al and said, just, you know, I just wanted to tell you guys, you know, like I'm Albus, you know, Dumbledore, the headmaster at the school. I just wanted to let you know that, you know, next year when Harry becomes 17, y'all are going to have a problem or something. I wish they would have at least handled it that way, if nothing else. But, of course, we'll see how they, of course, handle it when they release Deathly Hallows 2, because, of course, that's not been released. That will be released in, I believe, July of 2011 next year. But at some point in 2011 next year, that movie will be released out. But anyway, I do really like this movie. It is just, you know, it's really neat to see how, like, a lot of these scenes are shot. Do keep an eye out for my Deathly Hallows review. I might do a movie review not about Harry Potter. I might talk about like either Burlesque or like another movie that I might go see soon here besides Harry Potter. So keep an eye out for, you know, my other movie reviews. I'm working those up for you now. And I do thank you very, very much for watching, and I hope you all have a very great evening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.